All right, today we are kicking off a new video series called Brilliant or Busted. The idea on this one is we are going to take a look at some unique and strong team builds that are out there. We're going to break down what the figures do, what the team does, the core strategy behind it, and then in the comments below, you'll let us know if you think it is a brilliant idea or if it's completely busted and broken for gameplay. All right, let's get right to it. All right, so today we are going to break down the core of this team. It was used in a Majestics tournament like last month and completely dominated the field. It was fielded, I think, by PJ Bullen. We're going to post the link to the tournament in the description below so that you can see it in action. What we're going to look at, though, is the actual core of the team, the elements that make the team work, and then we're going to build out from there. When you build out from that core, you'll have some opportunities to customize it for how you want to make it work, but the core pieces have to be in place. The first figure that will be on this team is going to be Vulture Prime. We'll look at him in detail, just like every other figure, and then we're going to take a look on the battlefield of how they work, and I'll give you a couple of the options that I would add to the team for my preference. Second core element of this team is Photon. You'll see what she can do in the next couple slides. We're also going to need the PIM Pocket Tank for this core strategy to work. We'll need a POG, so we have to have some bystander on your opponent's team, and we're going to show ways that you get to generate that bystander that you're going to need. And we're going to need some minions for us to charge up Vulture's charges. Okay, let's get straight to it and take a look. Okay, to catch you up quickly on what these figures do, the Vulture is Vulture Prime. He's a great figure. Can mix him up all kinds of ways. He's only 50 points. What he brings here is his main deal is when he KOs a character, after resolutions, he can use charge at no cost. And that's when he KOs any character, then you can start building up your charges. Those happen after resolutions. And then what people do is you can add stuff to Vulture and get him a whole bunch of different charges to kind of decimate an opponent's team very quickly should he go off and start hitting people. What he has as his special movement is sidestep. When he uses it, you can roll a d6, 4 through 6. You can use sidestep a second time this turn. Okay, the Vulture type of team is going to be just one where you run them in and try to take out your opponent. It's not going to be a long type of match. So really, the second half of his dial doesn't matter. You're going to be using him on his top click, and usually under the current rules, you'll be pushing him and doing something right away. So really his top click is what to focus on. He's going to be coming in with a 9 movement with that sidestep, 11 attack, the 18 defense, and the 3 damage. Defense really doesn't matter because he's just going to go in and start hitting. You're not really going to want him to be taking shots. Your goal is to KO more than 50 points of your opponent or just take out the whole team. He does have improved movement characters, which will come into play to make that charge along with his flight to make that charge be able to move around the board, around the opponent, hit the most vulnerable characters, and build up the KOs. Okay, now the second piece on here is going to be the PIM Pocket Tank. We're going to be paying attention to the second and third trait. The second trait shows you how this tank moves around. So it must begin the game placed adjacent to a friendly character. When an adjacent friendly character moves and actions resolve, you may place PIM Pocket Tank adjacent to that character. Okay, but then really the third trait is the one that is going to come into play with this build. It's when an adjacent friendly character attacks an opposing character, the attacker may modify its attack value by -1. If they do and hit, replace the pocket tank with the particle tank And the way that particle tank comes in is it can go over top of blocking terrain. It goes where the characters are at. So when replacing this character, you may ignore characters and blocking terrain when placing it. Then destroy any in squares it's placed into. So the blocking terrain gets destroyed. Any character in squares it would be placed into are placed adjacent to it and dealt 2 penetrating damage. That's the piece that we're going to be using on this build. The thing to note is this ruling by Wizkids on the win. This is what hinges everything from the beginning of this team build through how it's going to work. So this is key component. The question was asked on win whether that damage that we just looked at from the particle tank being placed, if that counts as damage coming from the character that did the initial attack, or if it's damage from the particle tank itself, or even the pocket tank. What the rolling is the damage is considered to come from the attacker. Okay, it goes on to say that it's not considered damage dealt from an attack, but that doesn't come into play with the way we're going to use it. All we need to know is that it is considered damage that comes from the original attacker. Photon is going to be a key piece on this team. What she does is her special damage power is the key here. Plus, you can use her with her 8 range, 12 attack, 3 damage. You can use her to KO an object that's an optional add-in on this team to make Vulture a little bit stronger. So you can use her that way too. But really, the main piece that we're going for here is the free. Place an opposing bystander adjacent to Photon. That is going to be key to how we want to use Vulture to the fullest potential. All right, now in order to use Photon, we're going to need a POG, an opposing bystander that we can bring over to our side of the board. There are a couple options. There's quite a few options you can use. We're going to look at the 2 main options for this type of build that come into play. Okay, you could use J. Jonah Jameson as a POG, or you can use Leslie Evans. Those are both POGs that your character that you field, you generate this POG on your opponent's team. The way that you can bring these guys into the game is Groot is the one that generates Leslie Evans. He only has a 20-point starting line, so low cost. If you play him on the main force, you could do it that way. So your 20-point investment gets you the POG that you need. That's a main piece of this build, and it would get you his walking wood bystanders, depending on the if you can place Leslie Evans, which is key. So the risk there is your opponent takes up all of their starting area. You're not able to place Leslie Evans, so then it kind of destroys what you were going to try to do. Okay, the safer route on Majestics, you can still use ID cards. So you can use the Spider-Man ID card, call in Trash Can Spider-Man. When he starts the game, J. Jonah Jameson goes on your opponent's team. The ID card's 5-point investment. We're also going to need some minions on our team to make this build work. There's some options you can use, a couple different ways to go about it. We're going to look at the same one that was used on the team that was fielded in the Majestics event. There are some different ways you could go about it. You can do some of your own characters that generate POGs, but what you need is somebody that can be put into a certain formation and KO'd from the placement of the particle tank. And then anything else that they bring to the table is like a bonus on top of that. What we're going to look at is the Friends of Humanity. So this one is a low cost investment, single click, so you can KO them with the particle tank being placed. What they have is the Underworld key team ability, which is a key part here. You're going to need more than one. So you're going to need up to 6 or more. You need at least 6 to get the full benefit from what we're going to do. So with these guys, you can start them at the 5-point line, and then you have to roll for their starting click. But in order to make sure that you have proper placement, you don't want to leave it up to chance, I would start 2 of them at 10 points and choose the sidestep clicks. And then you would have 4 more of them starting at the 5-point value where you roll. It doesn't really matter what they end up on. Okay, so that total investment then would be 40 points altogether into the build. And then that's a low point investment to get you all the characters you need to make this strategy pay off. Now, some additions that can be put on top of the core that we're going to look at. You can add in support pieces, you can add in equipment, entities, resources, sideline elements. You can work in a theme team maybe. So all of those pieces you can put together to build out from that core depending on what you want to do. We're going to look at 2 additions that you could put in there on what I would do to get the most out of this core concept. First, I would put octopus arms on Vulture. So there's different ways that you can bump up what Vulture does. So his charge, the improved movement, the free charge after he KOs are all great, but then you want to get the most out of that ability. Joker's gas canister is another object you can include on your force, and I've seen it used a lot with Vulture. It's a popular one. Octopus arms are super popular on Vulture also. So Octopus Arms gives you Giant Reach 2 and Flurry. So that pairs up with his charge. So now you're charging with a Flurry. It gives you a better chance of KOing. It gives you a better chance of putting more charges in the bank with your KOs. Joker's gas canister, since the Vulture build is just going to be straight out offense and take out as many things as you can, what Joker's gas canister does is when the object is KO'd, you can attach it to the adjacent character to where it was at. And what it does is the marker that's attached gives that character Battle Fury and modifies its attack and damage values by +1. It reduces the defense by -2, and then it does some stuff at the beginning of the turns that the gas is on the character. But that's not going to come into play. We don't care if the defense is down because this is going to be one turn, go in and hit and do as much damage as possible. So it modifies both of the main things that you need for that. Bumps up your attack, bumps up your damage. Octopus Arms gives you the double attack and the giant reach. Looking at Vulture stats, what you end up with then, just with the gas canister and the Octopus Arms, your gas canister is going to be putting you at a 12 attack and a 4 damage just with that. The Flurry then, you're going to be coming in, flurrying with 12 attack, 4 damage. Even with reducers, you should be able to find a target that you can KO to build up 1 or 2 more charges and then go in, charge on one character. Maybe it's a bigger character or a longer dial. You have to charge 2 times on that same character to KO them. And then build up that charge, go on to the next one. What I would also pair this with is the 90-point Al Jordan. So that Photon that we looked at earlier is 90 points. Your Spider-Man is, I think he's 65 points. Both of those can be used as calling characters. And the reason that you would use a different 90 or above point character on your main force and use Photon as the call-in is if that other character brings more to the team. What you're getting with this character is the special perplex he has. Plus, he's able then to call in both of the characters that you need to make the build work. So what this one does is he gives perplex, and if he uses perplex to modify the same character and same value as your last turn, he can modify it by +2 or -2 instead. So you're going to use him to bump up Vulture's damage by 1, and then the next turn you're going to use it again on turn 2, which is when Vulture's going to be going off and doing his thing. You're going to bump up his attack by +2 before he goes out and attacks. The gas canister is going to bump it up by another 1, so you're going to max out Vulture at that +3. So it will end up where he's going to be hitting for 6 damage when he goes and does what he does. So with Al Jordan's perplexes and the gas canister, you're going to be sitting at a 12 attack flurry with 6 damage per attack. That's going to be a lot of damage output, should be able to get you a lot of KOs and allow Vulture to take out the majority of your opponent's team. Again, he'll be able to call in both of your other key pieces. You're going to need that Spider-Man to make the Pog on your opponent's team, the bystander, and you're going to need Photon in order to pull that bystander over on turn 2. Some other additions. So with that core build, you're still going to have room to build out. Even when you put on your minions, you're still going to have points left over for what you want to do. Here's 2 additions that I would put on the team. For 20 points, I'd put on Franklin Richards out of the newest Fantastic Four set, the Future Foundation, to take advantage of his TK. I would want to equip Vulture on turn 1 with those octopus arms, so I TK him into Vulture's square with Franklin. Vulture takes his action, equips it, sidesteps out because you're going to want him out a little bit into the field by the time he starts doing his charge. I would also put on, so this one is option. It's your option if you want to include a perplexer. If so, this is a 20-point one that you can put on there. You're already going to be maxed out on the modifications to Vulture's damage value, which is most important. But then if you want to boost up his attack an additional 1 just to get that higher probability of hitting, he's already going to be swinging with a 12 with the gas canister. But you don't want to miss. You want him to be in there hitting everybody he can. So bumping it up to a 13, even better. 20-point investment when you still have room to build. I would go with this. All right, let's take a look at how this will actually work on the battlefield. You'll get an idea what the first couple turns would look like to field this type of team. And again, this is just one example. With the core build out, you would have still some room to build around it. So what we're going to look at today is the core with a 251 point value. That's given Vulture at 50, Al Jordan at 90, the 2 ID cards at 5 each, Franklin and Valeria at 20 each, the pocket tank is 8, octopus arms are 10, Joker gas canister is 3, and the Friends of Humanity, we have 2 of them at 10 points and the other 4 at 5. Again, you could take out some of these pieces. If you didn't want to use Franklin and Valeria, that would free up some more build depending on how you would like to customize it for your own use. Okay, on the first turn, what I would do is I would TK the octopus arms on the Vulture, take an action to equip them. So that's 2 actions so far, 1 for TK, 1 for equip. Vulture would then sidestep, carrying Franklin with him. Then when the movement ends, the pocket tank will be placed next to Vulture. Al Jordan will want to perplex up Vulture's damage value, even though he's not going to attack this turn, because on turn 2, we want to be able to perplex that same value on the same figure to get a bump of 2 instead of 1. One of the higher point Friends of Humanity will carry 2 of the lower point ones because of the Underworld team ability. Then we'll do the same with the second higher point one. We'll want to get them in a 2x6 formation to utilize the tank on the next turn. Then Al Jordan will take a power action to call in Spider-Man, who's going to generate J. Jonah Jameson somewhere on your opponent's side. Then for the next thing, next turn, Spider-Man will go away. We will perplex up Vulture's damage again, so now he'll be at a +2. We'll perplex up the attack of Vulture with Valeria. Vulture will sidestep. The pocket tank will be placed next to him after. We're going to call in Photon. Photon then can destroy the gas canister, which is going to bump up Vulture stats, the attack and damage again. So now it'll be +2 attack, +3 to damage. And he'll have the Battle Fury and the other things that we talked about. Photon will take his free action, pull J. Jonah Jameson over onto this side. Since Vulture has the octopus arms attached, he has Giant Reach 2. So he can go ahead and flurry into J. Jonah. Then he would replace the pocket tank with the particle tank. On top of those, Friends of Humanity. Friends of Humanity would go in adjacent squares and then be dealt their damage so that then they would KO. So now Vulture has 6 KOs attributed to him, which charges up his charge by the amount of KOs that he got. Okay, then he would then J. Jonah would KO. Then here's what we're looking at with Vulture. He would then continue his actions because now he has 6 charges with Flurry. He's going to have his movement with the charges of 5. He has an attack of 13, damage of 6. Now those charges can be used for charge and then attack, or in this example, you can use them to move across the board. Since he has so many of them charged up, he could use a charge to move 5, then use another charge to move 5 more. Then on his 3rd charge, he'd be able to reach row 2. So even if your opponent didn't come out of their starting area yet, now that it's the 2nd turn, there's no more 1st turn immunity. You can reach all the way into row number 2 with that Giant Reach 2 on the 3rd charge. And that still leaves you a bunch of charges, flurries to start racking up more KOs. All right, so now that you've seen what this team does, we've broken down all the different components of it. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Is this build a brilliant use of game mechanics and characters and traits and abilities, or is it completely busted for the game? It would not be super fun, in my opinion, it would not be super fun to play against, but teams like this, I think, are important to show how little nuances and combinations can be used to make a team either fantastic or completely broken. I really like the creativity of putting this team together, even though it might be a slightly busted type of team. It does take a lot of effort and knowledge to put together a team that works this way. Check out the link down below to see this team actually used in the tournament. They filmed those matches so you can see them. And then again, let me know what you think down below. I hope to continue this video series with some other creative builds that are out there. So let me know. Also, let me know if there's any builds that you have seen in action that you would like to have analyzed. All right, thanks for watching. Check it out. If you dig what we do, go ahead and like and subscribe. Thanks for watching.